Captain Jake Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Defiant, staring at the message that had just arrived. His hands gripped the edge of the console as he read it for the third time. The words didn't change. Earth was being summoned to the Galactic Council. And it wasn't a friendly invitation. "How bad is it?" asked Dr. Lisa Martinez, walking up beside him. She was the ship's expert on alien cultures, and her face already showed worry. Jake handed her the tablet. "Read it yourself. They're calling it an emergency session." Lisa's eyes moved quickly across the text. Her expression darkened with each line. The horizon. They're making this about the horizon. The Horizon was Earth's newest colony ship. 3 months ago, it had traveled to an empty star system on the edge of known space. The planets there had water, breathable air, and no signs of intelligent life. The surveys showed nobody had been there for thousands of years, maybe longer. It seemed perfect for humanity's first real colony beyond Earth's solar system. But the Vryn Collective didn't see it that way. The Vryn were a powerful alien race, one of the older members of the Galactic Council. They had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They had weapons that could crack planets. And they were very good at making trouble for younger species like humanity. 2 weeks after the Horizon reached the system, Vryn warships appeared. They told the humans to leave. They claimed the system belonged to them, even though their own record showed they had abandoned it 5,000 years ago. When the captain of the Horizon asked for proof, the Vryn filed a formal complaint with the Council. Now, Earth had to answer for it. "They're going to try to stop us," Lisa said quietly. "This isn't about one colony. They want to put us in a box." Jake nodded. He had known this was coming. Ever since first contact 3 years ago, Earth had been under what the Council called probationary status. It was a fancy term that meant humanity had to ask permission for almost everything. Want to explore a new system? Ask the Council. Want to trade with another species? Get Council approval. Want to build ships? Better check the regulations first. The rules were crushing Earth's spirit. Humans were explorers by nature. They wanted to see what was beyond the next star, to build new homes among the planets, to reach out and touch the universe. But the Council kept saying, "No, not yet. Wait your turn. Follow the rules." Ambassador Peter Grant entered the bridge. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 3 years trying to negotiate with the Council, and it had aged him. "I just spoke with Earth. They want us to go." "When?" Jake asked. "Immediately. We're the closest ship to the Council station." Peter looked at the message on the screen. "They're giving us 2 weeks to get there. After that, they'll consider our absence as an admission of guilt." Lisa crossed her arms. "What happens if they find us guilty? Trade sanctions, travel restrictions. They might even demand we dismantle the Horizon and bring everyone home." Peter's voice was bitter. "Or worse, they could quarantine Earth. Lock us in our own solar system for the next century." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that would mean. Humanity would be prisoners in their own home, watching while other species spread across the stars. The dream of reaching new worlds would die. "There's something else," Peter continued. "I've been hearing rumors. Some of the Council members are afraid of us." "Afraid? Of Earth?" Jake couldn't hide his surprise. Humanity had a few dozen ships and a handful of colonies in their own solar system. The Council had thousands of worlds and technology that seemed like magic. "We're advancing too fast," Lisa explained. "Think about it. 3 years ago, we didn't even know faster-than-light travel was possible. Now we're building our own jump drives. We went from one planet to planning colonies across multiple systems. That took most species centuries or millennia. We did it in 3 years. Peter nodded. The council runs on tradition and slow progress. Change scares them. Innovation threatens the established order. And we're changing faster than any species they've ever seen. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. So they want to slow us down, keep us weak. They want to control us, Peter corrected. Make us fit into their system. Turn us into just another obedient member species that knows its place. The captain of the Defiant walked to the main viewport. Outside, stars stretched in every direction. Each one was a sun, maybe with planets, maybe with futures waiting to be discovered. His ancestors had looked up at these same stars and dreamed. They had built rockets and space stations. They had walked on the moon and sent probes to distant planets. They had never stopped reaching. "What are we going to tell them?" Jake asked. "When we get to the council station, what's our defense?" Peter was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know yet, but I know we can't just roll over. If we show weakness now, they'll never respect us. Earth needs to stand firm." "Even if it means conflict?" "Even then." Lisa looked between them. "We need to be smart about this. The council has rules and procedures going back thousands of years. Maybe we can find something in their own laws that helps us." "I'll have my team start researching," Peter agreed. "But we need to prepare for the possibility that the law won't be on our side. The council makes the rules, and they can change them whenever they want." Jake turned back to face them. "How long until we reach the council station?" "At maximum speed. 13 days. Then we have 13 days to figure out how to save humanity's future." Jake's voice was steady, but inside he felt the weight of what was coming. "Get Commander Ben Harris up here. We need to start planning. And contact Dr. Amy Chen. If anyone knows the council's history, it's her." As Lisa and Peter moved to carry out his orders, Jake stayed at the viewport. Somewhere out there on the horizon, families were unpacking their belongings in a new world. Children were probably running through corridors, excited to explore an alien planet. They didn't know that politicians and ancient aliens were deciding their fate. The Defiant's engines hummed louder as the ship changed course. They were heading toward the council station now, toward a confrontation that could define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations. Jake made a silent promise to those families on the horizon. Whatever happened at the council, Earth would not surrender its dreams. Not without a fight. The council station was enormous. As the Defiant approached, Jake Mitchell felt his breath catch in his throat. The station was built around an ancient moon with structures that spiraled outward like the arms of a metal galaxy. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked at its ports. Some were sleek and silver. Others were organic-looking, grown rather than built. The Defiant looked like a toy among giants. "It's been here for 12,000 years, Dr. Amy Chen said, standing beside Jake. She had spent the entire journey studying council history. "Longer than human civilization has existed." "Trying to make me feel insignificant?" Jake asked. "Just want you to understand what we're walking into. Age means power here. The older your species, the more respect you get." Amy adjusted her glasses. "Humanity is 3 years old in galactic terms. We're infants." The Defiant received docking clearance and settled into a berth far from the center of the station. Commander Ben Harris noticed the location immediately. "They put us in the cheap seats. We're docked with cargo haulers and mining vessels." "Another message," Ambassador Peter Grant said. "They want us to know our place before we even enter the chamber." The human delegation prepared to disembark. Jake wore his formal uniform, dark blue with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. Peter wore traditional diplomatic robes, Lisa and Amy both dressed in simple but professional attire. Ben Harris insisted on wearing his military dress uniform, complete with the medals he had earned during the first contact incident 3 years ago. The walk through the station was humbling. The corridors were wide enough to drive a bus through, and they had to be. Some species stood 3 meters tall. Others floated in tanks of liquid. One group passed by that seemed to be made of living crystal, chiming with each step. But what struck Jake most was the atmosphere. Everything was quiet, orderly, controlled. There was no rush, no energy, no sense of excitement. It felt like a museum, not a hub of galactic civilization. "They're all so calm," Lisa observed. "Look at them. No hurry, no passion." "They've been doing the same things for thousands of years," Amy explained. "When you're that old, nothing surprises you anymore. Nothing excites you." They reached the council chamber after an hour of walking. The doors were massive, carved from a single piece of black stone that seemed to absorb light. Guards stood on either side. They were Zenth warriors, a species bred for combat, each one carrying weapons that could level a building. The doors opened silently. The chamber inside was even more impressive than the station exterior. It was circular, with seats rising in tiers like an ancient amphitheater. Each section was designed for different species, with varying gravity and atmosphere. At the center was a raised platform where petitioners stood to make their case. The highest seats belonged to the High Arbiter and the Elder Council. Zelthor, the High Arbiter, was a reptilian being that looked like he had been alive since the stars were young. His scales were deep purple, and his eyes were like chips of yellow ice. He radiated authority. "The delegation from Earth," Zelthor's voice filled the chamber without shouting. "You have answered the summons. This is noted." Peter stepped forward and bowed slightly. "High Arbiter, honored members of the Council, we thank you for the opportunity to address this assembly." "Opportunity?" One of the council members, a floating jellyfish-like being, pulsed with red light. "You speak as if this is voluntary. You are here to answer charges." The humans were directed to a viewing area on the lower level. They sat and watched as other cases were presented first. A trade dispute between two insect species that had been arguing for 6 years. A territorial claim by a species that moved so slowly, their representative took 10 minutes just to reach the speaking platform. Each case was handled with excruciating attention to procedure and precedent. "This is how they do everything," Amy whispered. "Slow, careful, nothing gets decided quickly." After 3 hours, a case finished, and the Vryn emissary, Krenak, approached the platform. He was tall and thin, with skin like polished metal and eyes that glowed blue. "Honored Council," Krenak began, his voice smooth as oil, "I bring a matter of grave importance. The species known as humanity has violated territorial sovereignty." He displayed images of the horizon in the disputed system. "This world, along with 3 others in the system, falls within the historical boundaries of the Vryn Collective. Our ancestors surveyed and claimed these worlds 8,000 years ago." "Do you have proof of this claim?" asked another council member. Krenak produced documents, star charts, ancient records. To the humans watching, it looked legitimate, but something felt wrong. "We abandoned these worlds long ago," Krenak admitted, "but abandonment does not mean we surrendered our claim. The law is clear on this. Historical claims remain valid unless explicitly renounced." Lisa leaned close to Peter. "He's right. I researched this. The Council recognizes historical claims going back tens of thousands of years." "Even if nobody has been there?" Peter asked. "Even then. It's how the elder species maintain control. They claimed everything first, thousands of years ago." Now younger species have nowhere to go without bumping into an old claim. Jake felt frustration building. So the entire galaxy is already divided up? There's nothing left for new species? There are unclaimed systems, Amy said. But they're all in dangerous areas or have no habitable planets. The good spots were taken long ago. The council listened to Krenak with serious attention. When he finished, Zelthor turned his gaze toward the human delegation. Earth's representatives will now respond to these charges. Peter stood and walked to the platform. Jake noticed his friend's hands were steady, but there was tension in his shoulders. High Arbiter, members of the council, Peter began. We acknowledge that the Vryn have presented historical records. However, we must point out that these records show the system was abandoned 5,000 years ago. Not visited, not maintained, not protected. Simply abandoned. Abandonment is not surrender, Zelthor stated. Then where does it end? Peter asked. How long can a claim remain valid with no presence, no use, no interest? 10,000 years? A million? If we follow this logic, younger species can never find homes. Every world worth having was claimed long before they reached the stars. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species seemed uncomfortable with this question. You are young, Zelthor said. You do not understand how galactic civilization functions. Stability requires respect for established claims. Without this, there would be chaos. Or maybe, Peter said carefully, there would be growth, progress, new civilizations finding their place among the stars. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Several council members shifted in their seats. You tread dangerous ground, human, warned a council member from the Shaolin Empire. Are you questioning the wisdom of this council? Peter paused. Jake could see his friend making a decision, choosing his next words carefully. No, honored council. I simply ask that you consider whether the rules that brought stability in the past still serve the galaxy's future. Zelthor's eyes narrowed. We will hear more testimony. But know this, Ambassador Grant. The Council has maintained peace for 8,000 years. We did not achieve this by allowing young species to challenge the established order. As Peter returned to his seat, Jake leaned over. That could have gone better. Could have gone worse, too, Peter replied. At least now they know we're not going to just accept whatever they decide. But as Jake looked around the chamber, he saw something concerning. The younger species in the room were watching the humans with interest, but the elder species, the ones who held real power, looked angry. The trial had just begun, and already Earth was making enemies. The second day of the hearing began with more Vryn testimony. Krenak had brought witnesses, scholars who specialized in ancient territorial law. Each one spoke for hours about precedent and tradition. The message was clear. The law was on the Vryn side. But on the third day, things changed. Senator Greg Walsh arrived from Earth. He was a politician, someone who had spent his life negotiating and dealing with difficult people. He walked into the council chamber like he owned it, which immediately annoyed several council members. Senator Walsh will speak for Earth's government, Ambassador Peter Grant announced. Greg approached the platform and looked directly at High Arbiter Zelthor. I'm not going to bore everyone with legal arguments. My colleagues have done that. Instead, I want to talk about what's really happening here. You will address this council with proper respect, Zelthor warned. I am being respectful, Greg replied. Respectful enough to be honest. This isn't about territorial claims. This is about fear. The chamber erupted. Several species demanded Greg be removed for insulting the council. Others called for Earth to be sanctioned immediately. Zelthor raised one clawed hand, and silence fell. Explain yourself, human. Quickly. Greg pulled up a holographic display. 3 years ago, humanity learned about faster-than-light travel. We were visited by the Council, welcomed to the Galactic community, and placed under probationary status. Fine. We understood. We were new. He changed the display to show Earth's progress. In 3 years, we've built 23 FTL-capable ships. We've established mining operations on 4 asteroids. We've made contact with 6 different species and opened trade agreements with 3 of them. We've mapped 15 star systems and identified 7 potentially habitable worlds. This proves nothing, Krenak interrupted, except perhaps that you are expanding too aggressively. That's my point, Greg said. To us, this is normal progress. To you, it's terrifying, because most species take 100 years or more to do what we did in 3. Dr. Amy Chen stood up from the human section. I've studied your histories. The Vryn took 200 years to build their first fleet. The Shaolin needed 3 centuries to establish their first colony beyond their home system. The Trell, who now sit on the Elder Council, took 500 years just to achieve stable FTL travel. Zelthor's eyes fixed on Amy. You were not given permission to speak. Then give it to her, Peter said firmly, because she's about to tell you something you need to hear. After a long pause, Zelthor nodded. Proceed. Amy walked to stand beside Greg. Humanity's fast progress isn't because we're reckless. It's because we're adaptable. When we discover something new, we don't form a committee to study it for decades. We experiment. We try things. Sometimes we fail, but we learn from failure. She brought up images from Earth's history. Look at our technology curve. We went from the first powered flight to landing on our moon in 66 years. We went from early computers the size of rooms to handheld devices in 50 years. We invented the internet, and within 30 years it connected our entire planet. Your point? Asked a council member from the Vex Collective. My point is that this is who we are. We don't know how to be slow. We don't know how to stop exploring. And that scares you because your civilizations have been doing the same things for thousands of years. The chamber fell silent. Amy had said what everyone was thinking, but nobody wanted to acknowledge. Then Krenak laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. The child species lectures us on progress. How amusing. He turned to the council. But let us be honest. As the senator requested, do you know what happens to species that advance too quickly? They destroy themselves. He brought up his own display. Images filled the chamber, destroyed worlds, dead civilizations, species that had wiped themselves out. War, Krenak said simply. This is humanity's legacy. Images from Earth's history appeared. Ancient battles, medieval warfare, World War I, World War II, nuclear explosions, chemical weapons, drone strikes. You have been killing each other for your entire history, Krenak continued. You developed nuclear weapons and immediately used them on each other. You created diseases that could wipe out entire populations. You built machines of war before you built machines of peace. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan, who had piloted the Horizon to the disputed system, stood up. We also stopped. We haven't had a major war in almost 80 years. 80 years? Krenak's voice dripped with contempt. The Council has maintained peace for 8,000 years. Your 80 years is nothing. A blink. How long before you start fighting again? How long before you bring your violence to the stars? More council members joined in. They pulled up evidence of humanity's environmental damage. Forests cut down, oceans polluted, species driven to extinction, climate change, resource depletion. You consumed your own world, a council member stated. You burned through resources without thought for tomorrow. You poisoned your own air and water. And now you want to spread to other worlds? So you can destroy them too? Commander Ben Harris had been quiet through all of this. But now he stood. His metals gleamed in the chamber light. Yes, we made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But we also fixed them. Our air is cleaner now than it was 50 years ago. Our forests are growing back. We reversed the damage. After you caused it, Kreenak shot back. Exactly, Ben said. After we caused it, we didn't give up. We didn't accept that the damage was permanent. We fought to fix our mistakes. How many species here can say that? How many of you have faced extinction-level problems and overcome them? The question hung in the air. Several species looked uncomfortable. Zelthor leaned forward. You seem proud of your resilience, but resilience born from constant crisis is not a virtue. It is a symptom of poor planning and reckless behavior. Or maybe, Peter said, standing again, it's a sign of a species that refuses to accept limitations, that fights for survival, that adapts and overcomes. Pretty words, Kreenak said. But the evidence speaks clearly. Humanity is dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to break rules when they become inconvenient. He looked directly at the human delegation. You do not respect the established order. You do not understand patience. You do not accept your place. And that makes you a threat to everything the Council has built. The accusations continued for hours. Every dark moment in human history was brought up. Every war, every atrocity, every mistake. The Council painted humanity as a violent, destructive species that could not be trusted. As the day ended, Jake sat in the human quarters feeling defeated. Lisa was reviewing notes. Amy was researching precedents. Ben was checking security reports. Peter was staring at the wall. They're right about some of it, Jake said quietly. We did do terrible things. Every species did, Lisa replied. The difference is, their mistakes happened thousands of years ago. Time makes people forget. Our mistakes are recent, so they seem worse. Does it matter? Jake asked. Right or wrong, they've made their case. We look like the bad guys. Peter finally spoke. Tomorrow is our turn. I get to present our full defense. What are you going to say? Ben asked. Peter smiled, but there was no humor in it. The truth. All of it. Not just our mistakes, but what those mistakes taught us. Not just our violence, but what we built after the violence ended. Not just our failures, but how we rose from them. Will it be enough? Lisa wondered. I don't know, Peter admitted. But I do know this. I'm not going to stand up there and apologize for humanity existing. Yes, we're young. Yes, we made mistakes. Yes, we're different from them. But being different doesn't make us wrong. Jake looked at his friend. You're going to challenge them directly, aren't you? I'm going to tell them that their perfect, peaceful, stable civilization is actually dying, Peter said. And whether they want to admit it or not, humanity might be exactly what the galaxy needs. Amy looked up from her research. That's incredibly risky. If you push too hard, they'll come down on us with everything they have. And if I don't push hard enough, they'll cage us forever, Peter countered. Tomorrow, we find out what humanity is really made of. Tomorrow, we make our proclamation. The word hung in the air. Proclamation. Not a defense. Not a plea. A statement of who humanity was and who they intended to be. Outside the window, the council station gleamed in the light of alien stars. Tomorrow, it would witness something it had not seen in thousands of years, a young species refusing to bow. The council chamber was packed. Word had spread that Earth's ambassador would give his final statement today. Species from across the station came to witness it. Some expected humanity to surrender. Others hoped to see the young species humbled. A few secretly wanted to see them fight back. Ambassador Peter Grant walked to the center platform alone. He carried no notes, no data displays, no evidence, just himself and his words. High Arbiter Zelthor looked down at him. Ambassador Grant, you have heard the accusations against your species. You have heard the evidence of humanity's violent nature and disregard for proper protocols. The Council is prepared to render judgment. Do you have anything to say before we do? Peter looked up at the assembled Council. 47 species, thousands of years of history, the combined power of the galaxy, and one human standing alone. Yes, Peter said clearly. I have a proclamation to make on behalf of Earth and all humanity. Murmurs spread through the chamber. A proclamation was unusual. Most species gave defenses or apologies, but proclamations were statements of intent, declarations of purpose. You may proceed, Zelthor said, though his tone suggested he expected regret from this decision. Peter took a breath and began. 3 years ago, my species received the greatest gift in our history. We learned we were not alone. When your ships appeared in our skies, we were afraid, yes. But more than fear, we felt wonder, joy, hope. The universe was bigger than we had ever imagined, and we finally had a chance to be part of it. He paused, looking at each section of the Council. We accepted your rules. We submitted to probationary status. We followed your regulations, asked for your permissions, waited for your approvals. We did this because we wanted to be good members of the galactic community. We wanted to learn from species who had been exploring the stars for thousands of years. But, Krenak asked, sensing where this was going. But then we started to understand something, Peter continued. This council doesn't want us to learn. It wants us to stop. You don't want us to grow. You want us to stay small. You don't want us to explore. You want us to stay in our corner of space and be quiet. That is not true, Zelthor said. We want all species to thrive. Do you? Peter challenged. Then explain why every habitable system near Earth has an ancient claim on it. Explain why we need permission to build ships, to trade, to travel. Explain why species that haven't visited a system in 5,000 years still own it. He turned to address the entire chamber. I've spent 3 years studying your civilization. Do you know what I learned? You're not thriving. You're surviving. You've built a system so focused on stability that you've forgotten how to grow. Nothing changes here. Nothing new happens. You do the same things your ancestors did 1,000 years ago, and you'll do the same things 1,000 years from now. Several council members tried to interrupt, but Zelthor silenced them. Let him speak. You call humanity violent, Peter said. You show images of our wars and call us dangerous. Yes, we fought wars, terrible, bloody wars. We killed millions. We nearly destroyed ourselves. These are facts, and I will not deny them. His voice grew stronger. But do you know what happened after those wars? We created the United Nations to prevent future conflicts. We formed the Global Space Agency to explore together instead of competing. We established the Resource-Sharing Treaty to make sure no nation hoarded what everyone needed. We learned from our violence and created peace. Jake Mitchell watched from the delegation area. Peter was taking a huge risk, speaking this boldly to the council. You talk about our environmental damage, Peter continued. Yes, we polluted our world. We cut down forests and poisoned rivers. We changed our climate and drove species to extinction. And when we realized what we had done, do you know what we did? We fixed it. He brought up images of Earth. Not the destruction Krenak had shown, but the recovery. Forests restored, rivers cleaned, animal populations recovering, solar farms and wind turbines, cities covered in green plants. In 50 years, we reversed centuries of damage. We did this because humanity has one quality that I haven't seen in any species on this council. We refuse to accept that anything is unfixable. We refuse to believe that mistakes are permanent. We refuse to give up. Your point? Asked a council member from the elder section. My point is that you fear us not because we're violent, but because we're alive, Peter said. Really alive. We make mistakes, yes, but we also dream. We innovate. We push boundaries. We ask questions that don't have answers yet. We try things that might fail. We risk everything for the chance to discover something new. He looked directly at Zelthor. When was the last time anyone on this council discovered something new? When was the last time you tried something that might fail? When was the last time any species here did anything that surprised you? The silence was total. You've created a civilization without risk, Peter said, without danger, without failure. And you know what else you created? A civilization without growth, without discovery, without purpose. You're not living. You're just existing, following the same patterns your ancestors established, terrified that change might upset your perfect stability. How dare you? One council member started, but Peter kept going. The Vryn abandoned that system 5,000 years ago. They didn't go back. They didn't care about it. But the moment humanity showed interest, suddenly it mattered again. Why? Because young species finding homes means change. It means the old order might have to make room for something new. And that terrifies you. Kreenock stood. We have laws, ancient laws that maintain peace. You have chains, Peter countered. Laws designed to keep everything frozen in place, to prevent any species from growing beyond where you think they should be. You call it maintaining peace. I call it maintaining control. The chamber erupted. Species shouted at Peter, at each other, at the High Arbiter. Some demanded Earth be expelled immediately. Others called for sanctions. A few, mostly younger species, remained silent, but their body language showed interest. Zelthor raised his hand again. Order slowly returned. Ambassador Grant, you are dangerously close to being held in contempt of this council. I accept that risk, Peter said calmly, because someone needs to say these things. Someone needs to tell you that your golden age is over. You're stagnating. Your species aren't growing anymore. They're just maintaining what they already have. And eventually, maintaining isn't enough. Eventually, civilizations that stop growing start dying. He looked around the chamber one more time. Humanity is here to make a proclamation. We will not accept being caged. We will not stop exploring. We will not slow down to match your pace. We will continue to grow, to learn, to push forward into the unknown. We will make mistakes. We will sometimes fail, but we will never stop trying. You cannot simply ignore council authority, Zelthor warned. We're not ignoring it, Peter said. We're challenging it. The council has lost its way. It's become about preserving power instead of promoting progress, about preventing change instead of embracing it, about controlling younger species instead of helping them grow. He took a step forward. Humanity offers you a choice. You can try to stop us, which will fail because you can't kill the human spirit with sanctions and rules. Or you can join us. Remember what it was like when your species were young, when everything was new and exciting, when you looked at the stars and saw possibility instead of just territory to claim. This is outrageous, Kreenock said. You think you can lecture civilizations that are thousands of years old? Someone has to, Peter replied, because you've forgotten something important. Age doesn't equal wisdom. Living a long time doesn't mean you're living well, and following the same rules for 8,000 years doesn't make them good rules. It just makes them old. He turned back to Zelthor. Humanity's proclamation is this: we will be your partners, not your subjects. We will follow just laws, but we will challenge unjust ones. We will respect your history, but we will not be bound by it. We will take our place among the stars, and we invite anyone who still has the courage to dream to join us." Peter walked back to the human delegation and sat down. The chamber exploded into chaos. Some species were furious. Others seemed shocked. A few looked thoughtful. Jake leaned over. That was either brilliant or suicidal. Maybe both, Peter admitted. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. High Arbiter Zelthor stood. His ancient form seemed to fill the chamber. "This council will recess to consider what we have heard. Ambassador Grant, you have challenged the very foundation of galactic civilization. The consequences of this will be severe." But as Zelthor spoke, Jake noticed something. 3 species in the younger sections were leaving their seats, not in anger, but with purpose, and they were heading toward the human delegation. The proclamation had been made. Now, humanity would discover if their words had changed anything or if they had just signed their own death warrant. The human delegation returned to their quarters under heavy guard. Not for their protection, Commander Ben Harris noted, but to make sure they didn't leave. They were effectively prisoners now, waiting to see what the council would decide. "That was the most reckless thing I've ever seen," Lisa Martinez said, but she was smiling. "Also the most amazing." Peter Grant sat heavily in a chair. The weight of what he had done was settling on him. "I might have just doomed humanity." "Or saved it," Dr. Amy Chen countered. She was watching the news feeds from across the galaxy. "Peter, you need to see this." The screen showed reactions from different worlds. On some, there was outrage, calls for Earth to be sanctioned, isolated, punished for their insolence. But on others, something unexpected was happening. Younger species were talking. On their social networks, in their public squares, in their government chambers. They were discussing Peter's words. Some agreed with him, some didn't. But they were all talking about change, about growth, about whether the council's way was really the only way. "We started something," Jake Mitchell said, watching the feeds. "I don't think even the council can stop it now." A alert chimed. Someone was requesting entry to the human quarters. Ben checked the security scan and looked surprised. "It's 3 council delegations, not the elder species, younger ones." "Let them in," Peter said. The door opened, and 3 groups entered. The first was from the Kelix Unity, a species that had joined the council only 200 years ago. Their representative was a being covered in blue-green scales with 4 arms. "Ambassador Grant," the Kelix said, "my name is Ven. We heard your proclamation. My government wants you to know that we agree with much of what you said." The second group was from the Soro Confederation. They looked like tall, thin humanoids with silver skin and large black eyes. "We are Counselor Mir," their speaker said. "The Soro have felt constrained by council regulations for decades. We thought we were alone in this feeling. Your words showed us we are not." The third delegation was from the Drex Coalition, a species of insect-like beings with compound eyes and chitinous armor. "I am Hive Speaker Kretch," their representative clicked. "The Drex wish to propose an alliance, not against the council, but parallel to it. A group of species who want to move forward." Peter stood, hardly believing what he was hearing. "You're serious?" "Very serious," Ven confirmed. "The council will never change from within. The elder species have too much power and too much invested in keeping things as they are. But if enough younger species stand together, we can create our own path." Jake felt hope rising. "How many species are you talking about?" "We have spoken to 7 others," Mir said. "They are all interested. With humanity, That would make 11 species. Not enough to challenge the Council's power directly, but enough to be heard. There's more, Kretch added. Kreenak's evidence against you was examined more carefully. We found problems with it. The territorial claim the Vryn presented has inconsistencies. Some of the dates don't match. Some of the star charts are wrong. Amy leaned forward. Are you saying they faked the evidence? We are saying they exaggerated it, Ven explained. The Vryn did survey that system 8,000 years ago, but they never formally claimed it. They just recorded its existence. The actual territorial claim was filed 2 weeks after your colony ship arrived. They made up a historical claim? Ben asked. It appears so, Mir confirmed. The Council is investigating, but quietly. They don't want to admit that a member species would deceive them. Peter felt anger rising. So this whole trial was based on a lie? Yes and no, Kretch said. The lie was the excuse. The real reason is what you said in your proclamation. They fear you. Fear what you represent. Fear change. A louder alarm sounded. This was a priority alert, meaning the Council was reconvening. The trial was about to resume. The humans and their new allies walked back to the Council chamber together. Word had spread about the younger species meeting with Earth's delegation. Other species watched as they passed, some with anger, some with curiosity, some with something that might have been envy. The chamber was even more crowded than before. High Arbiter Zelthor sat in his high seat, looking ancient and tired. This council has reviewed the evidence and heard Ambassador Grant's proclamation, Zelthor began. We have also reviewed the territorial claims presented by the Vryn Collective. Kreenak shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The investigation found that while the Vryn did survey the disputed system in the past, they never filed a formal territorial claim. The claim presented to this council was filed recently and was backdated to appear historical. Gasps and angry sounds filled the chamber. Kreenak tried to speak, but Zelthor silenced him with a look. The Vryn's claim is therefore dismissed. The system in question is declared open territory. Earth's colony may remain. Relief flooded through the human delegation. They had won. But Zelthor wasn't finished. However, the High Arbiter continued, Ambassador Grant's proclamation poses a different challenge. He has questioned the authority of this council. He has accused us of stagnation. He has suggested that humanity will not follow our guidance. The chamber fell silent. The council could sanction Earth for this insolence. We could restrict your travel, limit your expansion, ensure you never become a threat to galactic stability. Zelthor paused. But if we did this, we would prove Ambassador Grant correct. We would show that we fear change more than we value growth. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was the High Arbiter actually agreeing with Peter? Therefore, the Council makes this ruling, Zelthor said. Earth will have its colony. Furthermore, Earth's probationary status is lifted. You will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The chamber erupted. Some species cheered. Others protested. The elder species looked shocked. Additionally, Zelthor raised his voice over the noise, the Council will establish a committee to review our expansion regulations and territorial claim laws. It is possible that some of our procedures have become outdated. Peter stood frozen. They hadn't just won. They had changed the entire system. Ambassador Grant spoke harsh truths, Zelthor continued, some of which this council needed to hear. We are ancient, yes. We are wise, yes. But wisdom means being willing to learn and adapt. If we have forgotten this, then we are not as wise as we believe. The old being looked directly at Peter. Humanity is young, reckless, and dangerously unpredictable. You will make mistakes. You will cause problems. You will disrupt the order we have maintained for millennia. Then something impossible happened. Zelthor smiled. It was a small expression on his reptilian face, but it was genuine. Perhaps that is exactly what this galaxy needs. The council session ended in chaos. Species were arguing, forming groups, making plans. The younger species gathered around the human delegation, talking excitedly about reforms and changes. The elder species met in their own clusters, looking worried about what they had just allowed. Back on the Defiant, preparing for the journey home, Jake stood with Peter on the bridge. "We actually did it," Jake said. "We changed their minds." "We reminded them of something they'd forgotten," Peter corrected, "that civilizations need to grow. That stability without progress is just another form of death." A message came through from Earth. Captain Nina Brooks of the Defense Fleet wanted to speak with them. Her face appeared on the screen. "I just heard the news," Nina said, grinning. "Earth is already celebrating. Ships are being built. Colony expeditions are being planned. Everyone wants to reach for the stars now." "Tell them to be careful," Peter warned. "We have freedom now, but we also have responsibility. We need to prove that humanity can explore without destroying, that we can grow without conquering." "We will," Nina promised, "because you showed us how. You stood in front of the most powerful beings in the galaxy and told them the truth. You didn't back down. You didn't compromise who we are, and that's what humanity is really about." The transmission ended. Jake initiated the jump sequence. The Defiant would be home in a few days. "Do you think the council will really change?" Lisa asked. "Maybe," Peter said. "Maybe not. But they'll never be the same. We proved that young species don't have to accept the old ways just because they're old. We proved that asking questions isn't disrespectful. And we proved that sometimes the best thing you can do is stand up and tell the truth, even when it's scary." Amy was reading reports on her tablet. "3 more species have contacted us. They want to discuss forming what they're calling the Alliance for Galactic Progress. They want Earth to help lead it." "One step at a time," Peter said. "First we get home. Then we figure out what comes next." As the Defiant jumped to faster-than-light speed, Jake looked back at the council station, shrinking in the distance. 3 years ago, humanity had been alone, isolated on one planet. Now they were part of something bigger, not just members of galactic civilization, but agents of change within it. The journey ahead would be difficult. There would be species that resisted change. There would be conflicts and challenges. But humanity had faced extinction before and survived. They had overcome wars, disasters, environmental collapse, and their own worst impulses. They would face the future the same way they always had, by refusing to give up, by learning from mistakes, by pushing forward even when it was hard, by exploring, discovering, and daring to dream of what might be possible. On the Horizon colony, families were building homes under an alien sky. Children were playing in fields that had never known human footsteps before. Scientists were studying new ecosystems. Engineers were constructing infrastructure. Artists were capturing the beauty of their new world. They didn't know about the trial or the proclamation or the political maneuvering. They just knew they were home. A new home, yes, different from Earth, but theirs. And across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds, younger species watched humanity's example and wondered if they too could break free from the old limitations, if they too could dare to grow instead of just survive. The Council had maintained peace for 8,000 years, but peace without purpose was just waiting. Humanity had reminded them that civilizations exist not just to maintain, but to become. Not just to preserve the past, but to create the future. Ambassador Peter Grant's proclamation had echoed across the stars, and the galaxy would never quite be the same again.